every week we do a presentation on that we call the market update, where we tell you where the market is, where we tell you where the market's going, where we tell you how you can win based on all of those different things. So I'm very excited that all of the major cities in Texas have now reported. So we now have all of the June data. I'm going to go through the highlights of this, guys. I know there's a lot of data on this slide. I'll just run through the highlights just so you can understand what we're looking at here. So last month, even with this big hit and rise in interest rates, sales prices, this average sales price was still up 13% year over year for Texas at $441,000. Now, the big hit that we saw is that closed sales were down. They were down 9.5%. What does that tell you? Some buyers basically said, I'm not going to buy. And do you think that there were a couple of contracts that were canceled because of interest rate shifts and people being able to qualify for those mortgages still? I heard a number that was somewhere between 10 to 15% of contracts were canceled because of an issue with financing, okay? So when you guys are qualifying your buyer, you want to make sure that they're not scraping every last penny, because if there is an interest rate change and if they are not locked in, that could definitely hurt them. Now, I will tell you this as well. The close price to the initial asking price, so the initial list price, houses in Texas sold at 100.9% of their list price. So what that means is if it was listed for $100,000, it sold for $100,900. Now, I know there's no such beast as a $100,000 house anywhere within probably 100 miles of where we are at, but I want you guys to get that concept. We've also increased our inventory. So the total active listings right now in Texas, almost 71,000 active listings, versus last year at the same time we were at about 49,000 active listings. Just from one month to another month, we increased the number of active listings on the market by 20,000 units, okay? This is what happens when you have a big shift in interest rates, and the buyer psychology is basically, I'm going to take my toys and I'm going to walk out of the room, right? You get all upset and you get all angry until you realize, oh man, if we don't buy a house now, the interest rates are going to go up even higher. And so we better get in now. So that psychology takes a little while to kick in. So what that looks like is we are going to see a reduction in year over year sales volume probably for the next several months. But guys, guess what? It's all going to be okay. Why is it all going to be okay? Because we still only have 2.1 months supply of inventory. We still have hardly any supply. So what does that tell you is going to be happening for the lucky ones that do get sold and make it to the finish line? Those prices are going to be up. Those prices are going to be up. Our historical average in terms of months of inventory is about 6 months of inventory. That's what we call a balanced market. Right now, we're running at about 1/3 of that at 2.1 months of inventory. And what that means is if we stop listing houses today based on the buyer demand that we've had over the course of the last 12 months, in exactly 2.1 months, we would be completely out of an inventory of homes for sale. Okay? A normal market, it would take 6 months. When it's 2 months, that's a seller's market. When it's 2 months, you see values go up. You see values go up. But now, as we start to add more inventory, because it's not getting drawn down by the same buyer demand, the months of inventory will start to go up, and we'll see some downward pressure on the growth of year over year average increases in sales prices. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm not an economist, but sometimes I play one in this meeting. All right, so Houston. So last month, average price was up 11%, 436,500. Last month, sales were down 8.6%, and inventory grew from 1.4 month supply to a 2 month supply. Looking forward, pending sales are our closest leading indicator of what closed sales will be next month. Pending sales in Houston are down 7.7%. And I will tell you, when oil and gas is kicking butt, Houston is doing really, really well. The rest of the country is suffering more than a little bit, right? So Houston, and I know the price per barrel has been down, and somebody who knows this better than me, has been down like 30 days in a row, roughly. So we have started to see that reduction at the gas pump, but that will also bring some of the profits down for some of the larger companies that are here in Houston. But just as we talked about earlier, when we see rising interest rate markets, we start to see the number of leases go up. So normally I don't report on leases, but I wanted to just show you where all the buyers have gone. So all the buyers have gone from buying properties to as a 25% increase in the number of leases last month, and the average price of those leases were up 11%. So it's a great time to be a landlord, right? It's a great time to be a landlord if you're seeing that. Not a great time to be a renter or a buyer, as it turns out, but you got to live somewhere. So those are some of the options. San Antonio last month saw an average price at $401,000, up 18% year over year. The closed sales were down 9% versus where they were last year on a 2.1 month supply of inventory. Pending sales in San Antonio down about 11% versus where they were the same time last year. And active listings are up about 2,600 active listings versus where they were the same time last year. So basically a 50% increase in the number of listings. Leases, again, San Antonio up 31% versus last year, and the lease price is up 10% versus where it was last year. Austin had the biggest hit, but Austin has also had the biggest run up over the course of the last 2 years. So average sales price in Austin, $669,000, up 13% versus where we were last year. Closed sales in Austin were down 20% last month, which is unheard of for that market. Now that market's been basically flat year over year in terms of the average number of sales. This brought it down below flat. Increasing interest rates in June. The hottest time for the market to be going has been a real punch in the face, and Austin's feeling that punch harder than any of the other markets. Pending sales, about 2,900 versus 4,400 last year. Pending sales are going to be the closest leading indicator to what closed sales will be as we end the month of July. So that down 20% number is going to be even down more as we close the month of July. Total active listings right now in Austin, just over 7,000 versus the same time last year, 2,265. I think that was, I saw the calculation, I want to say it was like a 200% increase in the number of active listings year over year. That is also an unheard of number. And even just from 1 month to the next, Austin had about 2,800 additional listings added to the market that are not currently under contract. And this is a big shift for Austin, because Austin over the last 6 months, it was not uncommon to see another phenomena that is completely uncommon, which is to see the number of closed sales higher than the total number of active listings, and the number of pending listings higher than the total number of active listings. You never, ever, ever, ever see that. You also never, ever, ever see a 200% increase in the number of active listings year over year. So some big changes in store for Austin. And guys, if you could hold on my calls, I would super appreciate it, because when I have to take a call in the middle of this, it totally messes with my mind. But again, because Austin still has very little inventory, now inventory has gone up 200% versus almost 200% versus where it was the same time last year. But we still will see those big increases in the average price. In fact, the closed price to the list price was 102.3%. So again, what that means is if it was listed for 100, it sold for 102,300, right? So just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Dallas, our other major market in Texas, average sales price was up 19% to $537,000. Closed sales down 8%. Active listings up 60% year over year, so that's a big jump as well. Leases, so again, where are people going when they don't are not ready to buy, they're jumping into a lease. So we saw leases in Dallas up 19% year over year. And guys, have you found this valuable in terms of knowing where the market is? Yes, yes? Okay, good. So